Hey everyone, and welcome to Deadlock Intel, your #1 source for all things Deadlock, Valve's newest 6v6 shooter. Make sure to subscribe for Deadlock updates, gameplay videos, breakdowns, streamer stories, and more. Today we're running through the most recent patch notes. As a reminder, I do not cover literally every single note, just the most important ones in my opinion, so I'll leave a link below to the entire thing. Let's get into it. 4 general changes, we're starting off with a bang. That's right, we have a new hero, Mirage. Mirage's first ability is called Tornado. He transforms into a tornado that travels forward, damaging and lifting enemies. On exit, he also gains bullet evasion. His second ability is called Fire Scarabs, which lets you launch fire scarabs at an enemy, stealing max health from enemies and applying bullet resist reduction. His third ability is Jin's Mark. His shots apply an increasing multiplier. When consumed, the target suffers spirit damage based on that multiplier. And finally, his ult that I think is super strong, channels to teleport to any visible ally or enemy hero, gaining move speed and fire rate. This is like an instant gank. Another huge deal is that they also added an initial anti-cheat detection system. When a user is detected as cheating during the game session, the enemy team is going to be given a choice between banning the user immediately and ending the match, or turning the cheater into a frog for the rest of the game and then banning them after. They say that the system is set to conservative detection levels right now, so hopefully they're not false banning anyone, as they work on a V2 anti-cheat system that's more extensive. When a match is ended this way, the results will not count for other players. This is incredible. I love seeing fun things like this added to games, and I think it must be some kind of nod to Ice Frog. Going through a bunch of other general changes now, they've also added a cheat report option in-game and post-game. You can now mute and report enemy players using escape while in-game. They've added global quick cast support, so you can now configure your abilities or items to be on quick cast mode globally. You can also customize each ability individually to be quick cast or not. An update to streamer mode, your party code is now hidden, which should help some people out. As far as regions go, they have added the South Africa servers and added Italian localization. Builds is one of the best systems added to the game already. They've updated it once again, saying that instead of showing the total number of favorites for each build, they now tag popular builds using a mix of both recent and historical usage, so newer builds are easier to find. This is great because the ones that were added first basically got the most favorites and are now already at the top, but a lot of them are still dated. Builds that haven't been updated in 30 days now have a distinct visual, so hopefully now you're not choosing builds that use items from patches a month ago. The power-up buffs that you can find on bridges now list all the stats they modify in the HUD instead of just the generic casting or gun that you used to see. Viscous also got a big visual update to both his look and his icons. Abrams has a new heavy punch animation, and Haze's voiceover was updated.
Sweet dreams.
They also included a joke in the patch notes that I just wanted to point out because I enjoy the dev humor here, where they say removed reason 31 of why Lash is better than Bebop and replaced it with the reason 26 of why Lash is better than Bebop. The side lanes are now a little further apart from the middle lanes than they previously were, and they added a first blood bounty bonus for the first kill each player gets that gives you 150 bonus souls. Lane setup is now always 1-2-2-1. So there's no variety there. And a change that I personally, as someone who is really bad at confirming souls, love, orbs are now appearing a little smaller to the enemy that is trying to deny them. Something that has had mixed reviews so far, they added a soul generator in the respawn area. It starts spawning orbs at 3 minutes, and each orb is worth 10 souls when shot. The dev's reasoning behind this is just to add something that hopefully, like if you're really close to getting an item, you don't have to go all the way to lane just to get it. I don't think people will really be able to abuse this because it is so slow and such a slow trickle of souls. Fire rate slows now stack diminishingly. The Rejuvenator bonus creep HP increased from 50% to 70%, making them a lot tankier, so Rejuvenator getting buffed. And the Rejuvenator bonus is no longer consumed for dead players. They have it on their next life. So people who died during the Rejuvenator fight no longer get punished for dying. I think that's an interesting change because I think it takes away a little bit of the risk that players had when going in. But on the flip side, it rewards people who are stealing it because they can dive in, steal it, and die and still get Rejuvenator. Something that was recently noted by a lot of people is that troopers were giving a half bounty when their base guardians were destroyed. That has now been removed. Mid-game respawn timer was increased a little bit as it reaches 50 seconds at 20 minutes instead of 40 seconds at 20 minutes. I think this is their way of trying to chip down just a little bit on how long games are going. Now makes it more punishing to die earlier. Guardians now also deal 10% more damage to players, making those early game dives hopefully just a little bit harder to do. Sinner Sacrifice now grants a permanent golden statue bonus when killed. They seem to be trying to incentivize people to do Sinner Sacrifice because right now I feel like it is rarely used and rarely contested. They also added a small indicator on the HUD to help track your passive cooldown items when they're 1 second from being ready. The boon count was increased from 11 to 14. If you're someone like me who is super confused by what boon meant, as I understand it, this is pretty much each stage that you level up as you're getting a certain amount of souls. So they've added 3 more levels essentially at 16, 18, and 20k souls. The non-health boon bonuses were rescaled over the now 14 levels instead of 11. Crouch abusing is now being punished, which I like. Aggressive crouch spamming within a very narrow window will now cause you to very briefly move progressively slower. So there's no more of that crouch movement crap going on. A lot of new changes with the map. They've added a connection from canal near the urn platforms through the radio station and apartment buildings. They reworked interior corridors of Fish Market Nursery to exit to the building sooner. They added an interior room partition from the Fish Market Nursery to the shops. They moved the rope to the Fish Market and Nursery rooftop to the back of the building. They removed upper interior hallway from rope to the Fish Market and Nursery rooftops. They moved the truck from in front of the archway with Cosmic Veil to the back of the Fish Market Nursery. Really just going in on the Fish Market and Nursery. They also redesigned outer lane paths from Walker to Guardian on Amber Yellow and Sapphire Purple. They added interior passages beside subway entrance to the outer lanes. Now getting into items, if you tuned in before, you know I separate them by each type, being weapon, vitality, and spirit, and then I talk about which was buffed and which was nerfed. Starting out with weapon nerfs, we have monster rounds, high velocity magazine, headshot booster, kinetic dash, melee charge, intensifying magazine, escalating resilience, headhunter, ricochet, shadow weave, and siphon bullets. I will note it's not really a nerf for shadow weave and siphon bullets. They were just switched around to if they were weapon or vitality items. For buffs, we have restorative shot, hollow point ward, berserker, mystic shot, melee charge, headhunter, pristine emblem, titanic magazine, frenzy, spiritual overflow, and silencer. Going over to vitality item nerfs, we have melee lifesteal, divine barrier, combat barrier, return fire, Veil Walker, Siphon Bullets, and Unstoppable. For vitality buffs, we have extra stamina, restorative locket, combat barrier, health nova, return fire, bullet armor, improved bullet armor, fortitude, life strike, colossus, and soul rebirth. For spirit nerfs, they hit ammo scavenger very hard. Spirit strike, withering whip, decay, refresher, and echo shard. Echo shard now having a 0.3 cast delay instead of being instantaneous, which isn't a crazy delay, but Bebop enjoyers might start crying. Withering whip did have a 8% fire rate removed from it. However, they did get a lot of buffs, which I think will put it back into the rotation for heroes like Haze. So with that being said, for buffs, we have Mystic Reach, Withering Whip, Improved Reach, Improved Spirit, Knockdown, Torment Pulse, Rapid Recharge, and Refresher. Like I said, Withering Whip got a lot of buffs here, as well as seeing Torment Pulse and Rapid Recharge. I think Rapid Recharge, getting these faster times between charges and more cooldown reduction is going to help a lot with people like Wraith if you're building those card nuke builds. Speaking of heroes, let's get right into it. Abrams had a mix of nerfs and buffs, as Siphon Life was buffed, but Infernal Resilience was nerfed. Bebop was nerfed as his hook range was reduced from 30 to 25, and Hyper Beam's duration spirit scaling was reduced. I don't think the range being reduced is really going to help for his hook, because people just build range on it if they're really trying to go for those cross maps. Grey Talon honestly was mostly just changed a little bit. I feel like these were mostly tweaks, not really a nerf or a buff, other than that last one where Guided Owl's radius was increased slightly. However, a hero who most people are probably celebrating being nerfed is Haze, who was hit with heavy nerfs this time. The Sleep Dagger's hitbox was reduced. Bullet Dance's bullets are now affected by Paradox's Time Wall. The evasion was reduced. Bullet Dance's fire rate was reduced, and they fixed it sometimes not obeying line of sight accurately. On the flip side, Ivy was buffed this time, as Stoneform now works against airborne targets, so you can dunk on people. Kudzu Bomb Tier 3 also grants a larger radius, and its spirit scaling was increased. However, kind of a nerf, more so a bug fix, them fixing the fact that people would use Stoneform during the take flight animation to get rid of the vulnerable cast period. Kelvin was nerfed as well, thank God, because Gun Kelvin was super annoying, as the headshot bonus damage was reduced by 20%, his bullet damage growth was reduced, and his Arctic Beam movement slow was reduced from 70% to 50%. Keep going down. Make it 30%. I can't move. Lady Geist surprisingly was buffed. I feel like she's super strong already, but Life Drain's cooldown was reduced, Malice's cooldown was reduced, Malice's tier 1 was improved, and Sprint was increased. McGinnis, on the other hand, was nerfed. First one being a nerf, but also just being a bug fix again, as they fixed looking up to circumvent the minimum range on Wall and Barrage, and people can now cast parry to cancel your ult. I'm not super sure how that's going to work. Mo and Krill had a healthy mix of nerfs and buffs in my opinion, with combo duration reduced but spirit scaling increased. Sandblast tier 1 was reduced, but its range was increased. Burrow's base speed was increased, but its tier 3 speed was reduced. Paradox was buffed as we saw Pulse Grenade tier 3, also granting a damage amp, and people can now be damaged by multiple time walls. Pocket was nerfed as Affliction no longer goes through walls and respects line of sight, thank God, because he would just show up, ult, and everyone would be at 1 HP within 10 seconds, no matter where you were standing. Pocket's Barrage tier 3 was also reduced, and 7 was hit with some nerfs as Static Charge mostly was focused here, with its stun duration reduced, its tier 3 reduced, its radius reduced, and it now respects line of sight, so you can only cast it on people you can see. However, in terms of buffs, you can now cast it on yourself, making it viable to cast it on yourself and dash into a full group of people. And Lightning Balls tier 3 also gives you some more radius. Shiv was mostly hit with nerfs as Slice and Dice was reduced at tier 2. Killing Blows rage buildup per spirit damage was reduced. The drain rate was increased. Full Rage's bonus damage was reduced, but Killing Blows tier 2 was increased. Vindicta hit with a mix of things as Stake was nerfed so people can move just a couple meters more. Max fall off was reduced. The low HP indication now also shows while unscoped from Assassinate, and Assassinate's base damage was reduced. The zoom level was also scaled back just a little bit, which will help with some of those closer range fights, I think, and Flight's duration spirit scaling was reduced. Viscous, as we know, yes, had some visual changes, but also had some kit changes as the Cube Cleanse is now part of tier 2. Puddle Punch was slightly nerfed as the enemy warning time was increased. Still feels instantaneous to me, people with slow reactions. Bullet damage was reduced as well, but Viscous can now use a down dash during Goo Ball, so some more movement tech. Warden's Binding Word escape range and escape time was increased by 15%. If I'm reading this right, I believe this is both a nerf and a buff, as the escape time increasing should be a nerf to Warden himself as people have more time to get away, but the escape range increasing should be a buff to Warden as they have to go further to get away. Let me know if I'm wrong about that. Last Stand was buffed as spirit scaling was increased. And finally, we have Yamato, who is mostly hit with nerfs as bullet damage growth was reduced, Crimson Slash's fire rate slow was reduced, Shadow Transformation's duration was reduced, and Shadow Transformation no longer provides unlimited ammo. However, its tier 3 duration was increased slightly. And that is all we have for today, guys. It was quite a lot, but let me know what you think about these changes. This is Deadlock Intel. I'll catch you next time.